Which human culture or practice has shocked you the most? Muti murders or medicine murders. In several AFRN countries, people believe that medicine made from human body parts is especially effective. From https www.nighttimes.com 2003-09-28 World Toddler S Killing Exposes Gaulish Southera Practice.html The New York Times. Muti murders, especially of children, remain disturbingly common. South AFRS police investigate an average of about one a month. The killings follow a pattern. A client approaches a healer, who orders a third person to collect body parts. A hand in a shop's doorway supposedly attracts customers. GS allegedly enhance virility or fertility. Fat from a stomach is prescribed to ensure a good harvest. Law says parts severed from live V are most potent because their screams awaken supernatural powers. Parts from children are considered especially strong. Child brides. WTF. I've watched a fair amount of documentaries about honor killings, and it disgusts me that people could value their perceived reputation more than their own blood relatives. The fact that they can kill, and usually in very brutal fashion, their own daughters, nieces, sisters, cousins, in order to protect their fragile ego and supposed honor is just sickening to me. What makes it even worse is that they are supposedly trying to preserve their honor by committing one of the most dishonorable acts one can commit. Anyone who partakes in such a heinous practice is worse than SC and deserves the harshest possible punishment. Beauty pageants for kids. Seems so creepy. It's not S to me personally, but many find the Agori in India very disturbing. Aga means non-terrible or non-terrifying, which seems antithetical to the appearance some sadhus take naked, or wearing very little, smeared with ashram funeral pyres, using skull caps as bowls and bones as ritual objects, practicing and sometimes living in cremation grounds. Aga philosophy revolves around the inherent divinity of all things. Every living being holds a spark of the divine. Nothing is outside of God. Thus nothing is inherently evil or profane, even the most taboo things such as dead bodies or reportedly haunted areas. The fast track to removing fear and revulsion of what is seen as bad, wrong, etc. and remove the dual view of the world is to worship God through what is considered impure and unholy liquor, meat, remnants of death. As an interesting aside, the Agori walk the talk and give women respect and spiritual authority, treat all castes equally, and there are Agori run schools and homes in Varanasi that specifically give low caste and poor children the same education as wealthier kids, helping lift communities out of poverty and confront class discrimination and sexism. In some cultures, beating your wifesses was a social norm and slave owning. These two I could never wrap my head around why anyone thought these were okay. Papua New Guinean tribes people would make young male kids entering puberty suck out the RSS out of their penises to absorb their manhood and become men. The more vigorous the kid would suck, the more effective he would become a man, so they told their kids. Absolutely bizarre. People calling kids spoiled brats if the kid does not want to share their property, even if the kid asks nicely. Even if the kid is a complete stranger. Sometimes the physically grabs the property and gives it to the kid who asked. Meanwhile the rest can just not share their property and nobody will force them to share it. Imprisoning rape V because they were R and throwing them in cells where they were often are by the policeman. I'd go with the Sambia people making their prepubescent boys suck their DS as a coming of age ritual. And yes, they are required to swallow. I consider it a practice, but in Germany they often don't use spaghetti sauce, instead they use ketchup. I learned firsthand the pain. Female G mutilation. Blaming the following generations for the sins of their MS and fathers seems to be an extremely common practice that I just find effed all the hell up. In high school I did a project on Somalia and read about the process of circumcision or G mutilation, and how when it was time to consummate the marriage sometimes they'd need to carve it open with a knife so the man could fit. Makes me feel uneasy just thinking about it. That some parents literally beat their kids if they don't get an A+. Edit. Please don't try to defend beatings. I cannot handle the thought of it. It's disgusting, and if you disagree then just don't comment. The breeding of pugs. SOLizing minors on television with macup and small clothing. Why circulate the garbage? Dress a 16-year-old in some inappropriate. I feel like TikTok allows a lot of this as well. Declawing cats where the practice is still allowed. It's pitiful to see house cats return home from the vet with their paws bandaged up, trembling with each step, and unable to defend themselves should the need arise. Lotus foot. Just why? The FU, I got mine mentality. The amount of narcissism and self-entitlement needed to actively throw others under the bus to ensure you personally make it through or get what you want is incomprehensible. The Urarina people, obviously without having a working model of microorganisms or even cells for that matter, integrated bacteria into some of their most sacred rituals fairly frequently. To attain the status of elevated mystic gug, the young applicants had to spend 2 days in a tomb-like container without food and water. A sugary concoction which promotes bacterial growth was applied to the surface of their eyeballs, and they subsequently were instructed to lay still for the duration of the ordeal. Some prospective shamans died, many partially lost their sight. The idea was that a mesh of microorganisms, of course they wouldn't have called it, that should invade the profane architecture of the human eye and replace regular vision with the more universal perspective of nature herself. We have no detailed record of how well this process worked, but from what I've seen in the lab, a fairly thick and healthy layer of FNGI or prokaryotes could indeed form during that time, under the right conditions. Must have looked pretty gruesome. Humans paying other humans to mutilate, abuse, exploit and kill animals purely for pleasure. Pedophilia. There are so many people who think it's okay to rape children, and so many people who protect the RS. I always thought insemination rituals were bizarre. Took a cultural anthropology course in college that briefly touched of different insemination rituals. Usually S is rubbed on skin or ingested by coming of age boys as a ritual to become men. Some cultures have other bizarre rites of par age. One comes to mind. In the Amazon there's a group that engages in pain rituals with bullet ants. People are weird worldwide since prehistory. Cannibalism. Honor killings. Probably certain farmers in certain parts of the world skinning raccoon dogs alive for their pelts. I just can't understand how someone could be capable of doing that. How can someone be so devoid of empathy that they can watch some mine cry out in terrible agony and not having it faze them at all? What would it cost them to mercy kill first before they skin? Coming inside socks. Entitlement and lack of empathy. It truly amazes me how many people will put others down for being in different circumstances with zero attempt to understand the other situation and just blindly spew hatred and ignorance towards those people. And those same people internally get mad when others treat them poorly. The leopardmen of Guinea select a victim and then kill them by stuffing various herbs deep into every one of their orifices. After the family buries a person, the leopardmen come and dig up the corpse and rebury it in a place convenient for them. They leave it to rot a while and then come back with long reeds that they poke into the ground and into the corpse to drink the juice produced by the rotting body. They believe this gives them special powers, like shape shifting. They usually eventually get really sick and die young. The populace have carved special wood clubs with spikes to kill leopardmen with. Hating people for who they love. I'll never get that. Dismissing scientific consensus or scientific knowledge as semi-fictional, but at the same time you accept Yao to ban Facebook as a valid source of information without a doubt. This level of ignorance and stupidity. I was shocked to find out there are people that believe the earth is actually flat and this is just the shallow start of conspiracy theories. Spartans sending small boys out to hunt, kill, and terrorize slaves. The most skilled boys from military training which began at age 7 went out into the wilderness, armed with a knife as low as age 12. They were expected to sleep during the day and hunt and murder slaves on their farms at night. Probably G-mutilation. It's insane how many societies have normalized taking a knife to kids. During an employee training lecture, I learned that in some Asian cultures, not making eye contact is actually a sign of respect towards superiors. It's the complete opposite in American English, so it was kind of cool to learn. Honor killings. Deliberately murdering your own children because of some kind of family honor. Rugs. Microwaving water to make tea. There are limits, people. A lot of people suppressing others through the ages and then giving religion as a reason. Witch burning. The Yulin Dog Meat Festival. If you don't know what it is, Google at your own risk. It's pretty terrible. Killing. Seems like bad practice to me. Reviling or making a joke of single people. Some people are voluntarily single and are still productive members of society. It doesn't make them any lesser than anyone else. In fact, they contribute more economically and can perform roles that non-single people can't. It's especially rich how the perception of them changed in China. At first single women were, I think they were called iron women, and how they contributed to the workforce, building the FGR. But then the population took a dip and now why aren't they having babies? Those leftover women that are outnumbered by men, making men actually but anyway, they should find a nice guy and settle. Selective abortion, the one-child policy and preference for M had no consequences whatsoever. Selective abortion also happens in India, and now India is experiencing similar problems, and all of a sudden it's somehow par-ed, or is on par with Afghanistan for the worst country to be a woman, as of 2019 I think. Maybe the single people aren't the problem. Like this girl. Her dad was an IQ and had heart attack, and this was second time. We all talked to her about taking health insurance. Her reply was no, I won't have health insurance cause in my religion having health insurance is prohibited. WTF. And the list continues. You can't use C or any pills. It's a shame to do so while having S with wife. If a woman's in your life doesn't respect or is loyal to you, you have right to kill her. And no, then no vice versa. Cause men can have multiple wives. SMH. I don't think a human need day-to-day decision made by some unknown, and blindly following them is so sad. No free healthcare. Not in my backyard. Do whatever you want to other people, but not around me. Being pushed to procreate by everyone, even if you don't have the means for a child or have no desire for kids. Especially if you're a woman, because you're not a real woman unless you have a baby. Bride kidnapping, witch burning and medicine murders are still a thing. In general, any kind of extreme mutilation ritual, feet binding, cutting of limbs as punishment, denial of personal freedom or religious persecution. I have a big problem dealing with the contrast of the moiety preached in the section of the world I live in, and the actions of a big enough chunk of people in places where such things are still okay. I could talk about the big problems that the West also has, like someone said, beauty pageants for kids and shaming young people, but honestly that loses its shock value real quick when compared to someone dismembering and eating your baby for their magic healing properties because they were born an albino. Circumcising babies' children is really effed up. Killing people because they are gay. Female G mutilation. Sawing away the clitoris without any kind of numbing with an often old and dull blade and often done to the child by an older family member, while it may be your own M holding you down. Then stitching your genitals up, leaving you mutilated and hindering basic human functions like pee or having your period for the rest of your life. It would be a horror movie if it weren't reality. Redditors putting the same answers in these posts again and again. Are members of certain tribes seeming in the mouths of younger members to welcome them to a hood. Incapacitating people as a display of wealth. Both Chinese foot binding and the practice of growing insanely long fingernails and toenails are meant to display your ability to not work with your hands or feet because you're so wealthy. Of course it's gross on a physical level, but it's also gross on a social level. Male G mutilation.